Welcome to a special edition of Medicine in Meadville. I'm Dwayne Kohler from Meadville Medical Center, and we're coming to you today from the Mind Body Wellness Center. And joining us is Carisa Ishimaru. Welcome. You're not new to Armstrong, to filming with our Savor the Flavor program, but you are new to Medicine in Meadville, which actually where Savor the Flavor came from. It was a spin-off, but you didn't know that.
That I didn't know.
Well, tell us about you.
Well, I'm actually from the sunny state of California. I have my bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics and food administration from the California State University, Long Beach. And I moved to Meadville about 6 years ago and have been a practicing dietitian here for quite a while.
So Meadville, Long Beach, they're a lot alike, right? I mean, it snowed like crazy today outside, but other than that, they're maybe not so much alike.
Nutrition-wise?
Nutrition-wise, okay.
Yes, there are definitely ways that we can get that good nutrition message across to family and get that word out there.
Now the holidays are coming.
Yes, they are.
So you're going to be having some tips for folks on things they might do for that holiday party, for ways to make it more healthy?
Yes, we are having a healthy holiday cooking show here at the Mind Body Wellness Center on Monday, December 8th. It'll be from 5:30 to 6:30.
So what will go on that day?
We're going to highlight some of the recipes. Well, actually one recipe that we will be doing. We'll change some, we'll have some appetizers, some desserts, etc. So you'll have to come to find out a little bit more, but just a little.
So just a little teaser now.
Yes,
but okay,
yes.
Okay. So let me ask you just a general question. If I have a recipe that's a family recipe or whatever, but now someone's diabetic, is there something we can do so I can still have that favorite thing, for the loved one, but now we have to be careful? Is there things to do to
Yes,
help?
there are. There's ways that you can doctor up a recipe and change it to make it healthier, so a diabetic can enjoy a little sweet treat as long as they work it into their meal plan.
So holiday time, it seems like it all centers around the meal and around, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and that. It's a cultural thing maybe, or it's that we have to, here, eat more. I can remember my grandmother and aunts saying,
right.
Have more. Maybe just ask you to talk about that for a sec.
Okay. I would say definitely one thing for a lot of women when they are preparing the foods, they are the whole day. It's rush, and they forget to eat. I would say number one is make sure you have your breakfast, make sure you have your lunch, make sure you don't
overdo it with the big dinner.
Correct.
Okay.
And a lot of people do say, well, I'm not going to eat now because when I get to that festivities, that's when I'm going to really get at it because I haven't eaten all day. But studies do show at that you do overeat. And I would say definitely don't skip your meals that day. Probably have a little bit of a snack prior to going, a good healthy snack, and drink plenty of water.
So maybe things are changing. Maybe, Grandma's not going to be offended if now, Grandma, don't pile so much on there. I'm watching, I'm trying to be careful, and I got this issue and that issue and so on. So we'll assume things are going to be better that way this holiday season. And you got some ideas for us here.
Yes, we do.
We're going to come back with that in a minute. Now, Carisa, the recipe you picked today is mixed nut tartlets.
Correct.
And it starts off with mini phyllo shells. So
Yes.
is that the same kind of phyllo? My wife's Greek, and phyllo shows up oftentimes in the Greek recipes. Is that the same kind of product?
It is. This one is specifically designed into little tartlets already in the frozen section, so you don't have to do anything.
Now, if I don't have a special tray that has these smaller shells, am I okay with doing it another way?
You are. You can put it right on a baking sheet. Just use a little bit of parchment paper right on there so they don't stick.
Okay.
And this is sprayed with cooking spray as well, so it won't stick.
Okay, good. Now, I see a bunch of things. I see butter. Now, butter, is that a healthy thing?
Not so much.
Okay.
But when you use it in moderation, you're all right. Butter has that saturated fat, which is not so good for heart health. You can use a light butter. We are using a regular butter, just unsalted for this
Sometimes
recipe.
when you substitute, it's going to change things, and
Yes, it
sometimes
will.
maybe not. But
Yes.
so butter is one thing that you do
We would-
lose some if you switch to a margarine or to something else.
Yes, you will lose some properties when baking.
What
as
about
well.
sugar? If you have a diabetes issue, and can I change that to something else? Can I cut it back and still not change it too much? Or
Sugar is one thing that you can decrease automatically off the top by about 1/3 of a cup, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
go for it.
Okay. Well, do you want to do the recipe?
So we have 45 whole Athens mini phyllo shells. 10 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Does that matter if it's salted butter or unsalted butter?
This one here, because we also have the nuts here.
So there's going to be some salt in the nuts.
And it's a lightly salted.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. A half of a cup of dark brown sugar. I see
Okay.
that there. A third of a cup of regular sugar. A quarter cup of heavy cream. 8 ounces of mixed nuts, dry roasted. Now, it looks like those have been chopped. Did you guys chop them?
Yes, we did. We've already.
So you could just get regular mixed nuts that are already in the whole shape and cut them yourself with a knife.
You're correct.
Okay. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay. So preheat the oven to 350. The large baking sheet with parchment, place the phyllo shells and a single layer on the lined baking sheet. Combine the butter, both sugars, and cream in a large saucepan.
So I right now have both sugars, both the granulated white sugar and the dark brown sugar.
Now the dark brown sugar, it's kind of clumpy when it comes out of the package, right? So you need to sort of kind of break it up before you get started,
it's
really?
Actually, this one has been sitting just a little while, so with the air properties and so the air mixing with it, it has hardened just slightly. So I'm just mixing this in, but really quickly. Within this pan, we wanted both sugars, the butter, and the heavy cream. And as you notice, we've only used a small amount of the heavy cream.
Okay.
Just a quarter of a cup.
Quarter of a cup, right.
And this is going to make 45 mini tartlets. And so when you're serving size is going to be a little on the smaller side as well. So in small quantities, in moderation, things can fit into your meal plan.
Can I jump right to the bottom?
Sure.
Per serving, 87 calories, 6 grams of fat, and 61.6% of the calories come from fat. 1 gram of protein, 7 grams of carbohydrates, trace dietary fiber, 9 milligrams of cholesterol, 15 milligrams of sodium.
Okay.
And it talks about exchanges. So what does that all mean?
Yes, what it's talking about is if you were to actually have an undoctored, so an original recipe like your pecan tassies, which is this recipe is similar
Very
to,
similar, okay.
The actual calorie content is going to be more than double than this for one little pecan tassie. So we've cut the calories in half with this recipe.
Okay.
Okay, sugar content as well for one of those tassies would be double the amount as well. So in that recipe, what we did was we cut the sugar content down. If there was, for example, 1 cup of sugar, this I'm talking about the white granulated sugar, you can decrease it by about 1/3. So you can automatically take out 1/3 of a cup to reduce the sugar content and do no further changes if you'd like to, which is what we did in this recipe. So that would remain a 2/3 cup for a recipe that has one cup.
So the dark brown sugar is less refined, right?
Well, there is a difference between light and dark brown sugar. The dark brown sugar has a lot more molasses in it, so it has a more enhanced
So it's a stronger flavor.
Yes.
Okay.
And with that, we can use a smaller amount because you have a lot more flavor with it. And so the amount of the dark brown sugar was just about a half a cup.
Okay.
When you look at some of the pecan tassie recipes, the sugar content can be higher as well.
So the refined sugar, the white sugar versus
the white sugar,
either brown
yes.
sugar, darker, or
it
light.
just has molasses in it, and that is what makes it the dark sugar.
Got it.
So the light brown sugar has less of that molasses in it. Okay, so it has a more delicate flavor.
Not going to have a stronger flavor. Got
Correct.
it. Okay.
So we're going to heat this on high heat until it boils. So it'll take a little while for that to happen. Once it boils, when you start to see the bubbles in there, we're going to let that boil for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes, and after that we're going to remove it from the heat and add in your nuts and the vanilla flavoring. When you do that, caution, it's going to add a little bit of salt in there because these are lightly salted nuts.
Okay.
You're going to see this boil up, so just be careful. I don't want anything to splash on you. And so we'll just kind of lightly stir this. We'll stir it a little bit more vigorously when it starts to boil.
As you're blending, it doesn't have to be perfectly blended because you're going to keep stirring.
You are correct. I just kind
It's
of...
a little swirly looking to me right now. And,
yes.
Okay. And that's all right.
It's okay. I'm still just mixing everything together, so the butter has melted right within there. And as we mix those nuts together and get in that vanilla flavoring, it'll still blend together because I'm still going to mix it together.
Let me ask you a question that I hear at my house whenever we're talking about getting a new appliance or whatever. A gas stovetop and an electric stovetop. Both my wife and daughter, both who love to cook, talk about the differences between the two. One has a gas and one has electric.
Okay.
That the gas, you turn it off and the heat's off. You turn it on and it's on. And the electric, it kind of takes a little bit longer for the heat to come up and a little bit longer for the heat to stop after. Does that impact how you cook things?
You definitely want to start with a hot pan.
Hot already. Okay.
Yes. But there are some cooktops out there for the electric which have a glass top that once you turn it off, it'll cool right away. And
Very
you can
quickly.
still, for
Okay.
safety, you could, yes. So it depends on, and here we have it starting to bubble, and I'm going to keep my eye on the clock. For 2 minutes, it's going to boil, and this is where I'm going to stir it a little bit more rapidly so that it will, one, not burn, as we have sugar and that butter within this pan.
When you have something with sugar in it and it's on a high heat, it can get real caramely, real dark, real quickly,
yes.
right?
Yes, and this is going to caramelize a little, but I just am going to cook it pretty quickly for about 2 minutes there.
Okay.
Now, remember, regarding the sugar, I'm going to go back just a little bit. The month of November is Diabetes Awareness Month, so we want to make sure that we do have some diabetic-friendly recipes at holiday parties, so just something to consider. This one doesn't have any artificial sweeteners within it, and I'm watching the time, because there are sometimes some people who have a sensitivity to it or who may be allergic to it. So with this recipe we didn't, but if you wanted to, you could further reduce a recipe, the sugar content in a recipe, by reducing it by another third.
So now as host of the show, I'm allowed one dumb question per show.
Okay.
Is it the same? If I, it cooks the same if it's NutraSweet or if it's whatever? Does it cook the same?
It depends on the type of sweetener that you have. There are some that are recommended for baking and heat, some that get destroyed by the heat.
Okay.
So this is where I'm going to have you be careful, because as you can see, it starts to bubble rapidly.
Okay.
And we're going to mix this all together.
Now you took it off the heat when you did that?
Yes, I did. So it's going to just to stir it together so it comes together.
That looks pretty interesting.
So, as I was saying, with the artificial sweetener, to reduce the sugar content for a diabetic, what you would like to do, for example, with that 1 cup, we reduced it by 1/3 of a cup, so we have 2/3 cup left. You can further divide that out into 1/3 of a cup of regular granulated sugar, and then substitute 1/3 of a cup with the artificial sweetener. So that 1 cup of sugar is now reduced down to just 1/3 of a cup with 1/3 of a cup of artificial sweetener.
Okay.
That's a possibility. And again, you can check the packages. There's various ones out there that you can bake with, some that are better with cold as well. So this is going to just cool a little. And what we're going to do is get it ready to be placed inside of the mini tart shells.
Okay.
And basically, again, we've sprayed this pan with some cooking spray so it doesn't stick.
Everybody uses that every time I'm on some cooking show. Boy, you got to have that cooking spray around. That seems like that's always needed. Okay.
It'll definitely, for this one, just like you said, it'll caramelize, and so it'll be easier to get it out of the pan. So make sure you spray it well. Earlier, with some trials, it got stuck a little bit.
It sticks a little,
yes.
okay.
The other part you could do is, if you don't have that, is to use the parchment paper. That's another way. But do be careful. Do not overfill your shells because it will bubble over. Okay, so just be careful. And so as this cools a little, it will harden. So just slightly, but enough to where you can still scoop it out. And if you read the directions, it's about a teaspoon or so that's going to go into each of these shells. And
so you're not going to wing it. You're actually going to take a teaspoon and measure.
I'm actually going to, it's easier for me, or you could use it a regular serving spoon type of teaspoon size. It's just easier for me.
Okay.
Yes. Less mess. Less of a cleanup. Yes. Okay.
I thought maybe that was a dietitian thing. Since it says a teaspoon in the recipe, you're going to use a teaspoon, so we know exactly that we're not going to be off on that 87 calories over there. We're not going to be off by 1 if we add a little bit more because we didn't use a teaspoon. Okay.
It's a heaping teaspoon that you can put in there. Just make sure that you get a lot of that liquid within there, because that's what's going to give it a little bit more of that sweet flavor. The nuts here, there's a variety of nuts that I purchased. It comes right in a can. There are, let's see here.
That's where the protein came from in the recipe that
You are correct.
Right? Okay.
There's a mixture of nuts, if you'd like to read them.
So it's less than 50% peanuts, and it has almonds, cashews, Brazil nuts, hazelnuts, some people call those filberts, and pecans, in addition to some peanuts. And very specifically says lightly salted on the label there.
So it's going to be reduced in sodium already, and we did use unsalted butter as well.
Now I saw all the ingredients all look like things that I've seen at the store all the time, except for those mini phyllo shells. Are those something that would be available in?
They are available at any of your grocery stores in the freezer.
In the freezer, okay.
Section of the grocery store. There are 15 little mini tart shells within one box. So I used 3 boxes there.
And the shell, did you need to thaw them out before you started with this?
They thaw within about 10 minutes or so. Yes,
quickly.
Very quickly. So it's not something that you have to take out, overnight and stick into the refrigerator. It's just straight from the box, right out into your pan. As I'm preparing this, they have thawed already. So very, very quick. But going back to the nuts, you had mentioned protein.
Yeah.
There's also some heart healthful studies, research out there on your walnuts, walnuts, your almonds as well. Your walnuts are the ones that have most of the studies done on them versus all the other nuts out there. But what we're seeing is a little bit more of the omega-3s within there, but you will get some protein within each of the, especially like the almonds, a great snack as well, which is something that you can remember to do, is to snack when it comes to the holidays, especially before you're going to that holiday feast, because you never want to go on an empty stomach, because you will eat more.
And nuts can be a beneficial snack because they've got that protein in it.
Just an ounce, which is about 1/4 cup, 23 almonds, that's all it takes.
Do I have to count them? Okay.
We'll give
I might cheat. Okay.
I'm going to place this down. I'm going to get this into the oven. They are going to bake at 350 for 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes, depending on your oven. And with TV magic, we have some already made.
How about that? Beautiful.
We have some already plated.
I can't wait to try.
I hope you like them. They are simple. It's a simple recipe, reduced in fat compared to the regular pecan tassie that might have the cookie dough as the shell. So this is reduced fat as well as reduced sugar.
Always one of the hardest things for me is like once the cooking's already done, then I have to wait for a minute while we, to sample. So can I try?
These have cooled, so
Okay.
you want to make sure that it does have time to cool down. You do want to serve them warm. They're best when they're warm. These have cooled down a little bit more than that.
That's wonderful. Now, if anyone asked me, I would not have any idea this was healthier than the original kind.
Great to know. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But this one is definitely reduced in calories and decreased in sugar as well, the sugar content. So a diabetic can enjoy this, as well as everyone else.
So one more time, the special show is coming up?
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that. It will be Monday, December 8th from 5:30 to 6:30 here at the Mind Body Wellness Center.
Well, Carisa, thank you very much. That was great to have the recipe to try and to hear about the show coming up. So get signed up. Do we need to call ahead for that?
You do need to call. The Mind Body Wellness Center's phone number is 333-5060.
Well, thank you for being with us, and thank you for the great recipe, and hope folks come out to the show. And thanks for the folks at home for joining us today on Medicine of Meadville, and we'll talk to you next time.